Hello and welcome to my Magical Readathon TBR. The Magical Readathon is a readathon hosted by G at Book Roast. The main events of a readathon are 2 month-long readathons held in April and September, and during those months you read books to fulfil prompts that are needed to pass classes. The readathon has an academy setting, and by passing these classes you can graduate from the academy with the skills needed to start particular careers. So in the description below, I will leave a video that G created as a handy guide for beginners for readathon if you want to know more, and also a link to the announcement video as well. My character Avianna is starting her final year at the academy. She is studying to become a mage hunter, which is in effect a cop. And in order to do this month I need to read books for the classes of Elemental Studies, Spells and Incantations, Conjuration, and Restoration. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through the prompts, what I'm reading for them, and a little bit of information about the book if I know it. Although I've just told you what lessons that Avianna needs to pass in order to continue with her career path, I actually have books picked out for most of the prompts. So I'll go through the ones that she needs, the ones that she would like, and then any additional ones. I'm also going to be reading from a list here, so if I'm looking down, that's just what I'm doing. So for Elemental Studies, we are studying temperature controls, which means that we need to read a book with a temperature word in the title. For this, I'm reading Cold Magic by Elliott. I don't actually know anything about this book. I found it in a charity shop and picked it up because it looked interesting. And then I forgot about it. It says something about dragons on the front, so magic and dragons, definitely a fantasy setting. That's all I know. Then for Spells and Incantations, we are studying In Fashion Spells and Incantations, and for that we need to read a book that's currently on a bestseller list. So for this I used an Amazon bestseller list around fantasy, and I chose Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. It was number 50 something on the list. So this is the second book in the Hekate series, and in the first book, A Court of Thorns and Roses, we meet Tahereh, whose family is struggling to survive. In order to feed them, she goes out hunting and ends up shooting a wolf. This wolf turns out to be a fairy shifter, and it is a crime to shoot them, so she is then brought to the fairy world in punishment. So I'm not sure what the second book is about. Tahereh is now living in the land of the fairy, and I imagine they are dealing with the fallout of the end of the last book. There's probably going to be a lot of politics and vying for power, changes of power, and her relationship with the characters around her changing. Probably going to be a lot more recent, as he was surprisingly absent from the first book for most of it, considering what I already know about the series. I'm looking forward to continuing it. I hope it's as good as the first book. I actually hope it's better than the first book, as I felt that the first book, although I enjoyed it, there were quite a few elements that I didn't like, and there were quite a few times that I was really bored. So hopefully this one will be better. Then for Conjuration, we are learning Inspiration Boosts, which means reading the first enticing book that you see on social media. So I scrolled through Goodreads for this, and the first enticing book I found that I currently own, because I don't want to buy any more new books, was A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is one of T. Kingfisher's horror books. I know nothing about it, but I did enjoy reading Hollow Places for her, so I'm hoping that I enjoy this one as well. Then for Restoration, we're learning Restorative Adoration, and this is where you can help me. So I don't actually have a book picked out for this. The prompt is to ask for 5 5-star titles and pick one. So if you're watching this and you have some 5-star titles that you want to suggest, then let me know in the comments. I will have a look through them, see what books I have, and if you recommend me a book that I have, I will look at reading it, choosing which one I'd prefer to read. Whether that's a book that interests me more, or whether it's a nice, easy, short book, which is good for readathons. If nobody comments, which is quite possible, or no book comes up that I currently own, then I will ask my partner, which means I will end up reading Dungeon Crawler Carl. I'm predicting it now, but we'll see what happens. So those are the books that I need for Avianna's career. So what I'll do now is go through the subjects that I think she will do well in and tell you what I'm reading. So for shapeshifting, which is volume modification, we need to flip a coin. If it's heads, then it's a book that's under 400 pages. And if it's tails, it's a book over 400 pages. So I was lucky and I got heads, and I chose Cows by Mathew Stokoe. This is 206 pages. I believe this is a horror, and I believe that it is grotesque. I have heard some people say that it's over the top, the plot's a bit crap, and it's just gratuitous, if that's the right word, with some of the things that happens in it and how outrageous some of the scenes are. And that they feel that they sacrificed a good book for that, and it's more shock value than anything else. But I will let you know what I think once I've read it. Art of Illusion. We're studying alternate illusions and have to read a book with unusual formatting. For this, I'm reading Hekate by Nikita Gill. It is a book of poetry, and I believe that the poems all tell an overreaching story. I'm not quite sure what it's about, apart from Hekate, and I know that Hekate is a witch in Greek mythology. I believe she's one of the Titans, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But she is someone in Greek mythology who interests me. I've heard mixed things about this book, and I know the second one is coming out soon, I believe. Then for Psionics and Divination, we are reading Past and Future, which means reading a book with the word time in the title. For this, I'm reading Unnatural Time by Julio Angel Ortiz. I don't know anything about this book. I believe it's a short story. It's been on my e-reader for ages, so long that I don't know where I got it from, so I know absolutely nothing about it. The next books are ones that I will get to if I have time, but that I don't feel any pressure to read as they're not essential for my character. So for Alchemy, we are doing Alchemical Reiteration, where we have to reread a book. For this, I have chosen Scorpia by Anthony Horowitz. It's a few books into a series which is about a teenage spy. These are books that I read as a child and really enjoyed. Considering this is a reread, I should remember what it's about. I don't really. I think it's got something to do with Alex, who is a teenage spy, searching for more information about his uncle's past. So his uncle was also a spy, and it was his uncle's death that led to Alex becoming a spy. And if I remember correctly, this is a book where we find out some answers as to what happened in his uncle's past. Perhaps more about how his uncle died as well, and the situation behind that. I can't quite remember. I do remember that I enjoy this series. It's action-packed, fast-paced, and just really entertaining. Then for Animal Studies, we are doing Shadow Wolves, which means reading a book with wolves on the cover, in the title or in the story. For this, I've chosen an audio book, and I'm listening to The Kill by Reece Barden. This is third in the Steel Pack Alphas series, if I remember correctly. Although this series is about werewolves, I believe that this third book is actually focusing on a vampire. He was part of the Steel Pack, but is no more, and they did originally believe that he was dead, but he's not. So I guess he is because he's a vampire, but he's not dead and gone. Throughout the series, he has been the antagonist, so it's going to be interesting to see the book from his point of view. The overreaching plot of this series is about this vampire who has come back to his pack and is threatening the pack. But although that is the overreaching plot, I would say it's not the main plot. The main plot is each book's protagonist finding love. So I don't know who the love interest in this book will be. I'm intrigued to find out. I'm quite sure that the wolf shifters will appear, and it's probably a wolf shifter that he falls in love with. And there is also a wolf on the cover, but I don't actually know what will happen. But I think everything's going to end up okay. And I also don't think that he's going to end up being as big a villain as we are currently believing. Then for Astronomy, we are studying Galactic Outskirts and for this we need to read a book from the top shelf. So my top shelf is Top of the Wardrobe, and I picked Grange Hill Goes Wild by Robert Leeson. So these books are tied to the Grange Hill TV show. I don't believe it is currently running. I believe it was running in the 80s, perhaps the 70s, and then it stopped. And then when I was a child, they brought it back, but I didn't really watch it. And if you watched EastEnders 20 years ago, you might recognise this guy as he went on to be in EastEnders. I don't know that much about Grange Hill. I believe it's just stories set at school. For demonology, we are studying common demonic dwellings and have to read a book with a house on the cover. For this, I am reading If There Be Thorns by Virginia Andrews. This is the third book, I believe, in the Donganger series, if I'm pronouncing that right. The first book being Flowers in the Attic. The first book is about 4 children who, after the death of their father, go to live with their grandparents. However, in the past, there was a big falling out between the grandparents and the parents. And although the granddad is willing to accept his daughter back, he is not willing to accept the children. So while they wait for him to die or be willing to accept them, the children are put in the attic to live, the granddad not knowing that they are there. So the book is basically about abuse. This book is set many years later. The children are now adults and they have their own children. They are trying to get on with their lives, but now something has happened which is causing the past to come back. I have read this book before. I can barely remember it though. I do remember enjoying it. And this is another series that I am rereading to then continue reading because I never actually finished the series. I'm also doing that with the Alex Rider series, which is what Scorpia is from. And both the series I hope to actually finish this time. Then for Artificery, we are learning Arcane Device Pairing. For this, we need to roll a d6 and then read whatever number that is from a series. So I rolled a 2. So I'm reading the second book in the Spiderwick Chronicles, which is Scene Stone, and that is by Tony DiTerlizzi and Holly Black. This series is about a family who move to a rundown mansion in the middle of nowhere, and then they realise that the world of fairy exists and is running parallel alongside theirs. And this brings about a whole host of dangers and problems. So this one being called The Seeing Stone, I don't specifically know what it's about, but I believe in the first book they find a stone which has a hole in it that when you look through it you can see the land of the fairy. So I believe this is known as a hagstone, but I don't know whether it's actually called that in this book. It's a nice short book, so it will not take me long, which is always ideal for a readathon. Then for Inscription, we are doing Dating Intricacies, and we have to read a book with a day of the week in the title. So I don't actually have a book for this. I am not going to try and find one because I would have to read a book that I don't currently own. But it's no biggie, I don't need it, and I've got plenty of other books to read. Finally, for Law, we are doing Ancient Speculative Law, and for this we need to read a dystopia or a utopia. For this I have chosen Shatter by Tahereh Mafi. This book is one that I don't know anything about. I've had it on my e-reader for ages because I remember there being a lot of hype around it, and it was on a deal at the time, so I picked it up and never read it. I believe it is a YA set in the future. I'm not sure if it's a dystopia or utopia, but I did find it on a list of dystopia and utopias, so I think it fits, and maybe I'll read it and find out. It's not high on my priority list, but maybe I'll get to it and then I will actually know. So that is everything that I plan on reading for the Magical Readathon. I had planned on picking small books for it, but sometimes the prompts don't work and I have to pick longer books. And I think in this case there are a few that are a little long, but luckily quite a few of the books are ones that I think I can get through quickly, whether that's because they were written for younger audiences or whether that's because in the case of Hekate, it's written in poetry format, so that should make it easier to get through and it won't be as long as the book actually looks. So is anyone else taking part in this readathon? I know there are so many of us out there, as this is a really popular readathon. If you are, tell me a little bit about your character in the comments below. I find it's one of the most interesting parts of a readathon for me is the character creation and how so many of us have stories behind our characters, stories around the readathon, the world, where our characters are going in the future. So let me know about your characters below. And of course, leave me those 5-star recommendations in the comments as well. And as always, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you in the next one.